Yeah, uh, yeah, yeah.
Hey, social work change agents. First, I would like to say welcome and thank you for supporting my YouTube channel. I am Jada Likely, founder of A Likely Transition. This is going to be the first video of many, and we are going to start off by reviewing 10 practice questions that are similar in style to the ASWB exam. I'm going to share with y'all some techniques and some strategies that have seemed to be successful in helping me pass this licensure exam. So, with that being said, let's get into the video and let's get you licensed. A 10-year-old girl is placed with a foster family that has different culture beliefs than the child. The foster parents want the foster child to follow their culture beliefs. What is the social worker's best course of action in this situation? A. Force the child to accept the culture beliefs of the foster family. B. Encourage the child to forget about her culture beliefs. C. Explain to the girl that her placement cannot be changed because of different cultural beliefs. Or D. Identify an ultimate placement for the child. Alright, y'all. So, question one is asking us, what is the best course of action? When you all see best, I want you to correlate best with what is the most ethically sound decision that I can make in this situation. Also, with best, it could mean all of these answers here are correct. However, we need to pick out the best one that we're going to do, right? So let's focus. We have a 10-year-old girl. She has been placed in a foster family that has different culture beliefs than her. However, the foster parents are telling her that she needs to follow their cultural beliefs. As the social worker, what is going to be your response? How are you going to behave in this situation? Are you going to force the child to accept the cultural beliefs of the family? No. When you all see force, that is negative. We are not going to do that. So we're going to rule this out. Are we going to encourage the child to forget about her cultural beliefs? So are we going to tell her, hey, I understand that you have this culture belief. However, because you're going to this foster family, you now have to forget about yours? No, that's not going to be the appropriate thing. C. Explain to the girl that her placement cannot be changed because of different cultural beliefs. Again, this one is very similar to answer B, so we are going to eliminate this. So our correct answer is going to be D. Identify an alternate placement for the child. This is the correct answer because this answer seeks to honor the diversity of the child while also respecting the foster family. A social worker employed in an outpatient setting is conducting an intake assessment for a 28-year-old woman who is reporting she believes people are out to get her. She reports she has not been able to sleep for the past 8 days and feels like her brain will not shut off. She admits that she spends more than what she can afford and feels pressured to engage in conversations with everyone she meets. The woman shared she has a history of hospitalization and has received a criminal charge of domestic violence with her spouse. What is the best diagnosis to describe the client's symptoms? Is it A, bipolar 2 disorder, B, brief psychotic disorder, C, bipolar 1 disorder, or D, schizophrenia disorder? All right, y'all. So what this scenario is asking you is, are you able to look at this scenario and identify those presenting symptoms that's going to describe the client's best diagnosis? So we are a social worker employed in an outpatient setting. We are doing an intake assessment for a 28-year-old. So this is the very beginning. She is reporting she believes people are out to get her. She has not been asleep for the past 8 days and feels like her brain will not shut off. Y'all, when I tell y'all to really pay attention to the duration of a symptom, whenever you have a diagnosed question, it is critical because the duration will help you identify the correct diagnosis. She is also admitting that she spends more than what she can afford, and she feels pressure to engage in conversations with everyone she meets. And on top of that, she has a history of hospitalization and a criminal charge that's resulted because of domestic violence. Another key indicator here, y'all, history of hospitalization. This is also extremely important when we are trying to determine the best diagnosis for this client. So let's review, and we're going to start from the bottom. Schizophrenia disorder. I automatically eliminate this one because I know with schizophrenia disorder, it has to last at least 6 months and ongoing. According to this situation, it's 8 days. So let's eliminate that. Bipolar 1 disorder. Now, this one is a strong possibility because one of the key indicators with bipolar 1 is going to require a hospitalization and have a manic episode of 7 days or longer. Now, so we're going to keep this. Brief psychotic disorder. We can eliminate this one here. With a brief psychotic disorder, it's going to last less than 1 month, so 30 days. You're going to have an individual with disorganized speech, delusions, grossly disorganized, or any catatonic behavior. So we're going to rule that out. So we are stuck with bipolar 1 and bipolar 2 disorder. Now, the main difference between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2 is going to be that hospitalization. So therefore, we are going to rule bipolar 2 out. And our correct answer is going to be bipolar 1 disorder. It's so important to remember that bipolar 2 includes a major depressive disorder that lasts at least 2 weeks in one hypomania episode. And it is not intense enough to require a hospitalization like bipolar 1 is. A social worker employed in a medical setting is meeting with a client during the assessment process. During the encounter with the client, the social worker notices that the client's self-reporting is incomplete. What would be the most appropriate approach for the social worker to take to improve the client's self-reporting? A, role play, B, family input, C, journaling, or D, guided imagery. So when we are looking at this scenario here, we are going to focus on what is the presenting problem. So client self-reporting is the presenting problem. Now, we're a social worker and we're employed in a medical setting. We're meeting with the client during the assessment process. And during this process, the social worker is noticing that the client is not reporting all of the information. So what would be the most appropriate action for this social worker to take to improve the presenting problem, which is that client self-reporting? Would it be role play? No, we are going to eliminate this. Role play helps others to recognize and respond to others. This would be inappropriate. Family input. Also, this is inappropriate because we are going to improve the client's self-reporting. There's no reason to include her family to improve this. That's not the most appropriate approach. Journaling. Okay. This is a strong answer so far, but let's keep going. So we have guided imagery. This is also going to be inappropriate to support the client's self-reporting because guided imagery helps to employ imagination and emotions. Therefore, our correct answer for this one is going to be C, journaling. This will help the client document and remember pertinent information in between sessions. A home-based primary care social worker meets with a client who is homebound. The client was referred to the social worker from his primary care physician. During a visit with the client, the social worker discovers the client is minimally meeting his basic care needs, appears to be somewhat confused, and cannot recall the necessary information. As the social worker is leaving the client's apartment, the apartment manager approaches. What should the social worker do? Are you going to engage in conversation with the apartment manager and express concern? Inquire if the apartment manager is aware of supporting family or friends. Continue to leave the client's house without speaking to the apartment manager, or provide the apartment manager with the social worker's contact information. So let's focus in on this question. We are a home-based primary care social worker that has just completed a session with a client who's homebound. Now, during this session, the social worker notices that the client is not meeting his basic care needs, appears to be somewhat confused, and cannot recall the necessary information. The social worker is leaving the client's apartment and the apartment manager approaches. What should we do? Are we going to engage in conversation with the apartment manager and express concern? No, we will not do this, because doing so will violate the client's privacy and confidentiality. B, are we going to inquire if the apartment manager is aware of any supportive family or friends? No, again, this violates confidentiality and the privacy. Are we going to continue to leave the client's house without speaking to the apartment manager? Wow, so far this seems like the best option here, but let's keep going. D, provide the apartment manager with the social worker's contact information. All right, so again, we are going to eliminate this answer choice. So the correct response is going to be C. We are going to leave that client's house and we are not going to say anything to the apartment manager. It's so important for y'all to remember that no discussion of a client's information should be discussed in person or electronically unless the privacy can be ensured, and these options that are presented do not support that. A social worker employed in a family outpatient clinic meets with a 9-year-old girl who was sexually abused. The social worker has been using play therapy techniques for several sessions, but the child is becoming more aggressive and continues to exhibit disturbing behavior such as bedwetting and masturbation. The child's foster parents feel that the child is not making progress in therapy and have asked the agency to assign a new social worker. What should the social worker do first? Are we going to inform the foster family the youth is progressing as expected? Require the young girl to demonstrate the sexual abuse? Or provide education to the foster family about the effects of child sexual abuse? All right, so let's focus in on this question. So we are a social worker in a outpatient clinic. We are meeting with a 9-year-old girl who has a history of sexual abuse. Now, this social worker has been engaged with this client for several sessions while using therapy techniques, but the child is becoming more aggressive and she continues to distribute behaviors such as bedwetting and masturbation. Now, the child's foster parents are upset and they're like, hey, we've been bringing our child to you. However, the therapy sessions are not productive. We need a new one. As a social worker, what's going to be your response? Are you going to inform the family the youth is progressing as expected? Possibly. This is a good choice. So let's hold on to this. Are we going to require the young girl to demonstrate the sexual abuse? Absolutely not. This would never be an answer. So we're going to rule that out. Are we going to provide education to the foster family about the effects of child sexual abuse? I really like this one. And the reason why is this provide education piece. So this is a foster family who is unaware of the effects of child sexual abuse. Therefore, this is going to be the first thing that you're going to do. You're going to start off with that education piece, and you're going to provide that and explain that to the family. Question 6. A 13-year-old girl is referred to the school social worker for excessive truancy. An assessment with the girl's parents reveals several incarcerations at the Juvenile Detention Center for selling drugs, and the parents report a long-standing inability to enforce limits or consequences with her. Her teacher describes her as quiet and disinterested in school, although the school social worker knows the girl has a reputation as a bully. What diagnosis most likely describes the girl? Okay, so this is a recall question. This question is asking you, are you able to look at this scenario based upon the symptoms that are being presented? Can you choose the appropriate diagnosis? Is it going to be antisocial personality disorder, bipolar 1, conduct disorder, or oppositional defiant disorder? So let's focus in on this question here. So we have a 13-year-old girl who's been referred to the school social worker for excessive truancy. The parents reveal several incarcerations for selling drugs, a long-standing inability to enforce limits or consequences, and the school social worker says she has a reputation of being a bully. So let's look at our choices here. Antisocial personality disorder. We are automatically going to rule this out because we know with an antisocial personality disorder, that person has to be 18 years or older. Okay, so let's rule it out. Bipolar 1. We are also going to rule this out because nowhere in this scenario does it illustrate any manic or depressive behaviors, and there's no hospitalizations. Conduct disorder. Oh, now this is a good one because with conduct disorder, you're going to have those behaviors of aggression, violating the rights of others, lying, manipulation, delinquent behaviors such as truancy, and several incarcerations. So right now, this is looking like a strong possibility, but let's keep going. D, oppositional defiant disorder. No, not really. So the reason for this one not being the correct answer is because with this disorder, you're going to have defiant behaviors, and that child is not going to respond to authority well. They will most likely argue with the adults, and they will also blame others for their own misbehaviors or mistakes. So we're going to eliminate this. Based upon that, the correct answer is going to be this conduct disorder. Question 7. A client is being referred to a community social worker after being discharged from an inpatient psychiatric hospital. The medical records indicate the client has been hearing voices for the past 4 months and believes she is being followed. According to the DSM-5 criteria, the most likely diagnosis for this client is A, schizophrenia, B, schizophreniform, C, schizoaffective, or D, brief psychotic disorder. Okay, y'all, so this is another recall question. Are you able to look at this scenario, look at the symptoms, and choose the appropriate diagnosis for this client? So let's focus in. What is going on? We are a community social worker, and we are working with a patient who was recently discharged from an inpatient psychiatric hospital. The client has been hearing voices for the past 4 months and believes she's being followed. Y'all, I cannot stress this enough. When you see a duration, pay attention to that. 4 months is going to be a key indicator on choosing the correct diagnosis. So let's review. We have schizophrenia. Nope, I know we're going to eliminate this because with schizophrenia, you have to have 6 months or longer presenting symptoms. Schizophreniform. Wow, okay, so this is a strong possibility because we know with this one, it can last 1 month but does not exceed 6 months. So according to this, her symptoms have been going on for 4 months. So we are in that time frame. So let's hold on to this. Schizoaffective disorder. No, we are going to rule this one out because with this disorder is at least 2 weeks of hallucinations and delusions. This this is not the correct answer. D, brief psychotic disorder. We are also going to rule this one out because with brief psychotic disorder, it is going to be less than 30 days, and typically it includes disorganized speech, hallucinations, and also derailment. So, given that, we know our correct answer is going to be schizophreniform disorder. Again, y'all pay attention to the duration. With schizophreniform, it can be 1 month up, but does not exceed 6 months. And it's also something to pay attention as the phreniform, the pre. Look at that as a precursor to schizophrenia. If you know something exceeds 6 months or is exactly at 6 months, you know it's going to be schizophrenia and not schizophreniform. A family comes in with high expectations of their 13-year-old child. The child excels in school, and the teacher states that he has never had an infraction, although he appears to be unhappy and has a hard time socially. The parents are likely using what kind of parenting style? A, authoritative. B, authoritative. C, permissive. D, uninvolved. So let's focus in on this one. What's going on? So we have a family that's coming in with high expectations of their 13-year-old child. The child is doing very well in school. He's excelling. The teacher said he's never had an infraction, although he appears to be unhappy and he's having a hard time socially. So given that, let's look at our choices here. We have authoritative. Wow. Okay, this is already starting off strong. We know with this parenting style, it's very strict, very controlling, and there is no compromise. And because of that, it impacts the child in their social behaviors. So let's hold on to this one. Then we have B, authoritative. This one is very similar. However, there is a very distinct difference because with this parenting style, you're going to set and enforce rules with consistency. However, it's going to be in a healthy way and it's supportive. So this is not the parenting style that's being displayed here. C, permissive. We are also going to rule this one out. This parenting style involves the parents being very warm, accepting, lenient, and they avoid confrontation. So we have D, uninvolved. It is exactly what it says, uninvolved. The parents demand nothing and they also give nothing. So the correct answer is going to be A. Now, I'll tell y'all a little secret. I used to struggle with knowing the difference between authoritative and authoritative. What I chose to focus in on is in authoritative, you have this V. So I look at this and I'm like, oh, well, that means they're very loving, it's very healthy, it's very supportive. So I look at that V to help me distinguish the difference between being strict and also being very supportive. Hopefully that helps you all. Question 9. A social worker is attending a community network event. While speaking to a woman, she discloses she was so frustrated with her child, she hit the child with a belt that left a mark. The woman is not a client of the social worker. What should the social worker do first? Are we going to recommend a family support group? Help the woman identify her triggers on why she hit the child? Make a suspected child abuse report? Or D, report the incident according to state law? All right, so let's focus in. What's going on in this scenario? We are a social worker and we are attending a community networking event. While you're there, a woman comes up to you and she discloses she was so frustrated with her child, she hit the child with the belt and it left a mark. Although this woman is not a client of the social worker, what should the social worker do? Are we going to recommend a family support group? I mean, it's a good option, but it's not going to be the first thing that we do in this situation. So we're going to rule that out. B, help the woman identify her triggers on why she hit the child. Are we really going to have a full-blown on therapy session right now and at the community network? No, we're not. So we're also going to rule this out. C, make a suspected child abuse report. Ooh, okay, so this is a good option. So let's hold on to it. But then we also have D, report the incident according to state law. Okay, so with this one, I am automatically going to choose D just because it says report the incident to state law. One of the things to remember is a lot of times some states do not require social workers to be mandated reporters when they are not in their professional capacity. So given that we don't know what state that this woman is in, we're going to go with D. This social worker is going to have to refer back to the state law and follow those procedures accordingly. A 14-year-old client is referred to a social worker because of substance problems. During the intake session, the social worker learns that the client is deaf. The client is accompanied by a parent who knows American Sign Language and offers to interpret the session. What should the social worker do next? Grant permission for the parent to interpret the session? Reschedule the intake session with a certified interpreter? Communicate with the client in writing? Determine if the client is agreeable to have their parent interpret the session. Okay, y'all, so let's focus in on this. What's going on? So we have a 14-year-old client who's been referred to us due to substance abuse. During the intake session, you learn that the client is deaf. However, her parent is there, and the parent knows American Sign Language. And this parent is offering to interpret the session. So as the social worker, what are you going to do? Are you going to grant permission for the parent to interpret the session? No, you're not going to do that. We're going to eliminate this. The reason why we are eliminating this is because if you allow that parent to interpret the session, you may be missing out on key information that that client is trying to tell you. That parent may filter it and not disclose everything that that child is saying. So that's why that one is not the correct answer. B, reschedule the intake session with a certified interpreter. Wow, okay, this seems like a really good option, but let's keep going. Communicate with the client in writing. No, that's not going to be the most effective way to do. D, determine if the client is agreeable to have their parent interpret the session. Again, even though we are including the client and the client's decision in this, it's not going to be the most appropriate thing to do. When you have a client with any type of impairment such as being deaf, you want to include a certified interpreter. That way you are ensuring that communication between the social worker and the client is transparent. Whereas if you had the parent be the interpreter, you could potentially miss out on key information and those emotions and those thoughts that that client is trying to share with you. So this is going to be the correct answer here. All right, social work change agents. I really hope that you enjoyed this slideshow and this presentation that I have put together. And thank you so much for your support. Don't forget to subscribe and follow on Instagram at A Likely Transition. I will see y'all at the next video. And remember, you're ready. Your efforts will help you pass. Success is yours. Believe in yourself. You got this, and you will be licensed.